Hi everybody, welcome. It's Juliet here. Today we're going to work on a bracelet because we haven't done one for a little while, and so this is kind of the main section of the bracelet that will be, on the outside of your wrist, and it'll have one more and then we'll begin to close up, but that is what it will look like. Very pretty. I just love the colors on this. It's just gorgeous. But anyway, so this is made using materials out of the Polychrome Glow Beads collection, Lite from Eureka Crystal Beads. So I will put a link for that down below. And if you need to purchase any of the materials or you're interested in buying the collection, it's a steal. It's only $39.95. You can go ahead and purchase that, but if you don't want the whole collection, maybe you just need, say, the crystals or something, you can, from within the page of the collection on their website, you can look down below and they have every single item listed, and you can just add individual items into your cart. So if you don't need the whole thing, you just need a couple of things, that is also an option for you, okay? So I'll quickly run through which materials I am using out of the collection. So first of all, here I have these rectangular crystals that we got, which are just absolutely gorgeous. I love them. These are Krakovski crystal, and I mean the color on that, isn't that just gorgeous? So we got 6 of them in our collection, so I'm using all 6 for my bracelet. That's kind of the main star of the show. We are also using our 6mm Czech faceted rounds in this gorgeous color, which is something about Yarrow. Hang on, I will tell you. It's saturated metallic pink Yarrow. Really pretty metallic color here. So those are 6mm. And then I have my 4mm Bicones, which are dark blue AB, absolutely stunning. We have some Miyuki drops here. These are the kind of medium size, normal size drops. They also came in our collection, and this is the Miyuki number DP455. Okay, so they are kind of the feet on our bracelet. So our bracelet has little feet, because this is kind of domed, we had to kind of lift it up a little bit on the edges so it doesn't flop around. So those are kind of the little feet on the bracelet. Okay, we have some 6mm Bugle beads, and these again came in the collection. Miyuki Bugle 401FR. So this fun frosted color. Now in the Miyuki mix there are also some other ones that are shiny. So if you wanted to make yours shiny, you could. I kind of like the matte. I think it kind of goes with the metallic finish on the Czech Firepolish beads, and it gives a little bit of contrast, I think. So I kind of like that. Then we also have here, so these are hex beads. These are 2mm long, and they're slightly bigger than a 8/0. Okay, so if you have the collection, you will find these hex beads inside the collection, okay, inside the mix. So I just pulled out a bunch, and I had quite a lot in mine. I mean, you can see I still have more in here, so you should have plenty, and you only need 2 per kind of bezel for our stone. So if you're doing all 6, you'll only need 12, okay, of these hex beads. If you don't have hex beads, you could try something like a 2mm round, or maybe, I don't know, is there a 2mm Firepolish? I'm not sure if that's a thing. Maybe a 2mm whatever, okay? but these are 2 millimeters long, and they're a little bit thicker than a normal sort of 11-0, okay? Then lastly here we have some 11-0 round seed beads. These are Toho. Again, they came in our collection, Toho rounds. Color is called Metallic Iris Purple. Now, if you are using Miyuki, you may have to add 1 extra bead on the back here, maybe have 3 in the middle. I'm not sure, I haven't tested that, okay? So just a warning, because these are slightly, ever so slightly larger. And then you just need some thread. So I'm using KO today in black. And for each bezel that you're going to do, you're going to need about 70 centimeters, which is about 27 inches, which is kind of 2 feet plus 3 inches, okay? And you're going to leave, 3 to 4 inch tail at the end. And you're going to pick up the following. We're going to pick up one of our bugles, one of our drops, and I'm trying to use the drops that have a slightly skinnier top section. So some of the drops you'll see here have a very large top section. Some of them have a slightly smaller one. I'm trying to pull out ones that have a slightly smaller one, okay? Again, a bugle, again, a drop, a bugle, a drop, a bugle, and a drop. Okay, so you should have on your needle bugle, drop, bugle, drop, bugle, drop, bugle, drop. You're going to give yourself, as I said, 2 to 3 inch space at the end to weave in. You're going to push all of these beads down, okay, and then you are going to sew through the very first bugle and the very first drop like this, and you're going to pull that to form a funky square. Okay, so once you have a square, just hold on to your tail. And I don't really recommend this project for beginners, simply because the tension in this project is a little tricky, and you kind of need to have some experience with complicated tensions, okay? So just be warned. You can't tie a knot or anything because we may need to loosen it or tighten it, so you kind of just have to hold on to your tail for now, okay? All right, so we're going to pick up 6 of our seed beads, and if I'm holding on to the tail on my lower left hand corner, that's important, okay? I'm coming out the lower right hand corner. I'm going to enter into the drop at the upper left hand corner, so directly diagonally opposite, okay, like this. And then you're going to sew back through all 6 of those seed beads that you just added. Okay, and then once you've sewn back through, so you'll notice that originally I came out of that side of my drop, like the top side, okay? So I'm going to enter into the far side of the drop plus the next bugle. So I'm going through the drop and the bugle, and I'm going to pull, okay? And just kind of pull your tail as needed. Okay, so it now looks like this. I'm going to enter into the drop up here as well. I'm going to pick up 2 seed beads, and I'm going to, so if this is the top, that's the bottom left, remember where our tail is. I'm going to go down, so downwards through the 2 middle seed beads of the group of 6, okay? So we have this, and then I'm going to pick up 2 more seed beads, and I'm going to sew through the lower left drop, which is the drop kind of near where our tail is, okay? It doesn't matter which way you go through that drop, okay? Once you are through that drop, you're going to sew back up through the 2 seed beads that you just added, okay? You're going to sew up through the 2 seed beads in the middle of our X here, and through the 2 seed beads up towards that upper left-hand corner. And then we started on this side, so we have to sew into the other side of that drop, and you can move forward through the bugle as well. Okay, and pull. So you should now have something that looks a bit like this, and if your thing is coming loose, just pull on your tail, okay? Yeah, so, okay. Once you're coming out from your bugle here, go ahead and go forward through the drop as well. You're going to pick up 3 of your seed beads, and we're going to enter into the drop again, if I can find the hole, and go down through the next bugle as well. And what you want is you want these 3 seed beads to sit on top of the drop like that. And we're going to do that for all the corners. So go through the drop first. Make sure that you're coming out from the drop, okay? Pick up 3. Go through the drop again. And you can go forward through the next bugle. And just always make sure that those beads sit up on top of your drops. Okay, so again at this corner, we're going to pass through our drop. We're going to pick up our 3 seed beads. We're going to go through the drop again and move forward through the bugle. Make sure that those beads sit on top. And the last corner, go through the drop. Pick up those 3 seed beads. And go through the drop again. Okay, so we should now have something like this where you have 3 little loops sitting above your drops, okay? Go ahead, pass through the next bugle bead, and so you want to be coming out one of the bugle beads that is either at the top or the bottom. So where's the top and the bottom? So where the 2 things are, point to the top and the bottom. Okay, these are the sides, and this is the top and the bottom. And that is kind of important, okay? All right, so we're going to move up the first one of the 3 closest to where you're coming out right now. Okay, so I was coming out this bugle and I just went straight up. So I'm going to work kind of back the other direction now, okay? I'm going to pick up a seed bead, a hex bead, and a seed bead. I'm going to go down into the equivalent bead on this corner. So that's the top, so I'm doing it along the top edge, okay? So that should be along the top edge, okay? Then I'm going to move forward again through the bugle. Okay, so just move underneath the beads you just added. Move up again through that first bead there. And then move through the middle bead of the group of 3 at the corner. Okay. Okay, so we now have this. So these are, it's kind of like a little tiny bed or something. Okay. So now we're going to pick up 1 seed bead, 1 bugle, and 1 seed bead. Okay. And you're going to go into the middle of the next group of 3. So this is the side here. So I'm going down the side into the middle of that next unit there. Okay, so we now have a side on our bezel here. Okay, then I'm going to go down into the bead right here. Okay, so that's kind of the bottom bead, I guess, there. So you're going down that, if that's the group of 3 right there, you're just going down into the lower bead. You're going through the next bugle bead. Okay, then you're going up the next bead on the next group of 3, and then we're going to repeat what we did at this end. So you're going to pick up seed bead, hex bead, seed bead. Okay, you're going to go down that end bead again. Move forward through the bugle down below. Okay. Okay, so we now have 3 sides kind of with an edge. Then you're going to move up through that end bead and through the middle bead right here. And then you're going to pick up a seed bead, a bugle bead, and a seed bead. And you're going to go into, so if this is the group of 3 going over that, you're going into the middle one, okay? Okay, so we now have this. So now we're going to join all of those beads on the top, because like this is not joined to that, that's not joined to that. We're just going to join those all together, okay? So you're going to go through the 3 end beads. Then you have these 2 beads here to go through the bugle. So you should have 3 kind of corner beads, if you want to call them corner beads. So you're not going into the very lower down. You should have a pair of lower down beads. See, like here, though, you're not going into those ones, but you're going into the 3 upper beads, okay? And you're going to finish by coming out from one of the side bugles here. Okay, so one of the 2 sides, you're going to come out from the side, and then looking at the side that you're coming out, so I'm coming out on the right here, you're going to go down that first bead that's kind of above the drop, okay? You're going to pick up a bugle. You're going to go up into the opposite bead that's there. And this is where you have to be super careful about tension. You don't want to pull too tight because it might warp it, okay? So you're coming out the top of that bead right there. You're going to go back through the bugle bead. And at this point, you're going to want to kind of pull it. And what you want is, you want the threads to be kind of going in and coming out, okay? kind of evenly, all right? And then you're going to go back down that first bead that we started in so that this is kind of centered in here. So just adjust your tension so that it's kind of evenly placed between those two beads, okay? So if you're pulling super tight, it's gonna warp a little bit, so you don't wanna do that. Then you're gonna go through that bugle again, okay? And up through the seed bead. And then we're going to move forward. So you're going to go through the top seed bead, the first seed bead of that next corner of group of 3. And then we're going to skip this bead here, and we're going to go into these 3 beads. And so that, you want that to kind of pop out so that it forms more of a corner shape, okay? We're going to again skip the second bead, go through the next bead and the bugle, but don't go into the next group yet, okay? So you can kind of get that shaping of those corners the way you want, okay? And then we're going to add that same, remember how we added an extra bugle on the side over there? We're going to do the same thing here. So you're going to go down through that little bead that's kind of above the drop on the inside. You're going to pick up another bugle. You're going to go up into the opposite bead. You're going to pass back through that same bugle you just added. Try and get the tension balanced. Go down the first bead that you started in. Okay, so again, I'm not pulling super tight. I'm just trying to get it as balanced as I can between these 2 beads right here. Then I'm going through the bugle again. I'm going up through this bead, and you can go back if it becomes weird and unbalanced. You can go back in later and try and adjust it a little bit if you need to, okay? All right, and then we're going to go up through the top bugle bead. And at this point, we need to put in our stone. So remember, it's really hard to hold this because it's not very big. Okay, so I've already tightened up these 2 corners because remember we skipped those beads. So I'm gonna insert my stone in this way, kind of aiming towards that end. So to slot it in and then push it down. Okay. And then we're going to go through the next seed bead, skip this corner, go through these 3 beads here. And then skip this corner and go through these 3 beads here. Okay. Okay, so it's kind of held in, but not really. Mine is a little funky. If yours is crooked, you can take it out and try putting it in again, or you can kind of try like squeezing the top sometimes helps, or squeezing the side and kind of rolling rolling it like this. But I usually find if it's really crooked, if I take it out and put it in again, it kind of behaves better. So mine is not doing great here. Just gonna pop it out for 1 second. Tighten up the corners. I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna try and slip it in this way. Okay, that's better. Okay. Do what you gotta do. All right, so go ahead and move forward so where you're coming out from the hex bead. You're going to pick up 1 seed bead and you're going to go straight from the hex bead into the bugle bead on the side. It's going to just kind of close that corner up a little bit for us, okay? You're going to, so that's where we were. I'm coming out from this bugle here. I'm going to pick up a seed bead and I'm going through this hex bead. So you're not going into any of the seed beads at all on this step, okay? Then you're going to pick up another seed bead, go into the bugle, and pick up 1 more seed bead and go into the hex bead. And then you can pull all of that tight. Okay, so there is our bezel. Mine is a little wonky right here. Sometimes you can just kind of move the beads and they'll snap into place. But sometimes you have to go back and reinforce. So I'm gonna just see if I can just align that bead a little bit better. Yeah, this side's looking a bit weird as well. Of course, the one where you do the video is always goes a little funky. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to reinforce these beads and then I'll come back and show you how to join this on, okay? Okay, once you have reinforced, if you need to, you're going to pass around the front and then go, when you come out from one of the bugles, you're going to pass down that side bead right there that's kind of above the little foot, okay? And we're going to join on to another one, okay? And as you work and you do more, you're just gonna keep joining on to the next one. All right. Okay, so you're coming out the bottom of this bead here on the side, okay? You're going to pick up a 4mm bicone, a seed bead, a 6mm Czech bead, another seed bead, and another bicone, okay? So bicone, seed bead, 6mm, seed bead, bicone, and I'm coming out the bottom here. I'm going to go up into the bead on this side, okay? So it's going to form a loop like this, all right? Then you're going to sew back through the bicone and the seed bead, like this. Just make sure there's no slack there, okay? Kind of try and budge it up. You're going to pick up another bicone and you're going to sew up into that equivalent bead on this piece here, okay? Like this. You're going to sew back through, so there's the bead I just added. You're going to sew through that bicone and the seed bead, okay? So back through the Czech bead and just pull, make sure there's no slack, okay? Then you're going to sew through the seed bead going in the direction we need to go because we need to add that bead there, okay? So just make sure that you're sewing from the bicone through that seed bead there. Okay. Pick up another bicone. And then again, you're going to go up through that bead on the side of the piece. Okay, like this. And then you're going to go back through the bicone, the seed bead, the bicone that we started in as well. Okay, so I'll go through that whole top section there. And then because we came out the bottom of that seed bead, we have to kind of center it. So we're going to go down through it again with our needle so that we have a thread on the top and on the bottom. And then just give it all a pull, make sure you don't have any slack. Okay, so every time you're joining another one on, that's what you're going to do, that same process. Okay, and then I'll show you what I do to tie that thread off. Once I am coming out down at the bottom here, I'm coming out down, I sew through the drop, okay? So through the drop, so up through the other equivalent bead on this side. So through that top corner bead, and then here you can tie a knot by sewing between the corner bead and the next seed bead here. So just kind of sew in between there. Put your, sorry, my needle came unthreaded, but sew through the hole in the thread that you make here, okay? And tie a knot right in there. Let me quickly rethread my needle. Okay, and then you can finish off by sewing through that bead and through the bugle, and then you can cut that off. Okay, and you can do something similar with your other tail here, or you can just you know, sew it up in here, however you want to do it. Okay, all right, so you're going to keep doing your bezels until you've got all 6. Then we're going, let me measure and see how long this is at the moment. So it's about 5. What I'm planning to do is another group like this at each end, okay, like this. We're probably going to have to do 2 just to make it a little longer. Let me see how long is that. That takes it up to 6. So yeah, you're probably going to need to, depending on your wrist size, probably going to need to add a few extra beads at the end, okay? So I'll come back in a second and show you that. Okay, so I've done one end, and this is kind of how I did it. You will probably need to stop before I did, because if I do the other on the same as I did on this side, it's going to be like 8.5 inches long, which is a little bit too long. But anyway, go ahead, get yourself the same length of thread that you were using for your bezels, and I'm using some of the Jumprings and the little button clasp that came in the collection as well. So that's fun. Okay, I'll show you how I did this really quickly. So there's basically two different sections. So one of them it's all right angle weave. So let me show you on the back. So you're either adding a bicone, a seed bead, a Czech bead going down, or you're going to be adding a bugle, Czech bead, seed bead, Czech bead, seed bead, bugle, and then alternating bicones. And then I added some little embellishment X's on the top using the hex beads just to pull in a little bit of that gold because of the gold flashes on the main section of the bracelet. I wanted to kind of tie that in. So all I did is I went down one of those beads on the side that we've been using to join. Okay. And just like we did before, I picked up a bicone, a seed bead, a Czech bead, a seed bead, and a bicone. I went up into the other bead to get that same little loop that we had before. And I went back around. Now you'll notice at this point, the bracelet is basically only holding on to 2 beads. So what I did once I got to the length that I wanted it to be, okay, when I get back here, I'm going down into that bead again, just so that the thread is joined on the top and on the bottom of that bead, okay? And I've just got myself looped around. Here we go. Okay. All right. So there is my first little unit. So yeah, once I did my whole length, I kind of ran down all of them back up and I ran through the bugle and sort of circled around again so that there's more holding this than just these 2 little threads right here. Okay. These 2 little beads. Okay, so you're going to go through the bicone and through the seed bead. And then here I did my little other unit. Okay, so for that, you're going to pick up a bugle, a seed bead, a Czech bead, a seed bead, and a bugle. Okay, so bugle, seed, Czech, seed, bugle. And you're going to go into the seed bead next to the Czech bead right here. Okay, so now we have this. Go through the Czech bead. You're going to pick up 3 of your seed beads, 1 of your hex beads, and 3 more seed beads. Okay, I'm coming out this bit right here. I'm going to go into the Czech bead diagonally opposite from where I'm coming out at the moment. And that's going to put this little line of beads on the top here like this. And they do poke up. They do sort of stand up a little bit, okay? Then I'm going to pick up 2 seed beads. I'm going to go through the middle seed bead, hex bead, and seed bead. Okay, and then pull tight, and that should all kind of bunch up once you kind of pull, okay? And then you're going to pick up 2 more, and you're going to go into the Czech bead Okay, so that's how you do that unit. And then you can just go through the bugle, the seed bead. And then we're going to add another bicone unit here. So you pick up bicone, seed bead, Czech bead, seed bead, bicone. Okay. Go down into the seed bead before the bugle. Go through that Czech bead. Pull. Go through the seed bead that's joined onto the Czech bead, okay? Through the bicone you just added and the next seed bead. And then you're ready to do another unit like this, okay? So again, you're just going to pick up bugle, Czech bead, bugle, seed bead, Czech bead, okay? And go as long as you want, okay? And then at the end, what I did was, because you're going to finish with a Czech bead at the end here, I just picked up 9 of my seed beads. And you can stop, you know, at this unit, you can stop here, you can go longer, whatever you want. Okay, so pick up 9 seed beads, run through, go all the way up, all the way down, okay? Like go up through bugle, down, okay? Reinforce, 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 reinforce. Then once I had my loop on, I also went through like just this bit. I reinforced, I went down to the next one, okay? So you want to make sure you're reinforcing that whole loop and your whole strap so that your bracelet's not going to fall apart. And then I just added 2 of the Jumprings that came in the collection, which kind of match onto my clasp. And that is how I did it, okay? So I think it came out very nice indeed. It's going to be gorgeous. That is approximately the right length. I mean, I'm going to have to go back and fix this, take off some of this. That's kind of sad for me, but anyway, yeah, that's about right. So I think if I had stopped here, I would have been okay. But anyway, so I'm going to fix that. One more thing before I forget. I was able to cut off that long end of my bracelet because I had used a new piece of thread. So it has not affected any of my actual central portion at all. So I highly recommend when you are adding like little end bits on or doing bits for a clasp that you always use a new bit of thread so that if it's not working, you can cut it off. Okay, just wanted to share that with you. Okay, I eventually finished my bracelet and you can see it came out really, really nice. So I only did a bicone unit and then a unit with the bugles and then a bicone and then a bugle and then I ended it. But your wrist may be even smaller than mine, but this ended up being perfect for me. And I love how this came out. It's so sparkly and so glamorous. So I hope you try this bracelet. It's a lot of fun. These crystals are so pretty. I just love them. Anyway, okay, take care. I'll see you soon. Bye.